I mean, it's skyrocketed, so a $600 pension 10, 15 years ago won't buy much of anything here today.
And why the millennial generation is starting to give up because they can't afford to get a good job or own a house.
8 million Venezuelans voting for this assembly, saying it's actually less than 3.
It is. And people are going to start rioting in the streets.
Was reported to have asked Putin for military support that would help him stay in power.
We will make America safe again. And yes, together, we will make America great again.
And they ignore him. And 8 more years goes by till Bernie himself finally admits to his sons, hey, I've been running a Ponzi scheme.
Does its dominance mean it can use the alliance for its own ends?
Since 1981, bond yields, also known as coupon rates, have just gone down and down and down.
Federal Reserve note will be your biggest financial liability.
RTD Live Talk, Monday night, the 17th day of the month of September. And we are live, checking in from Detroit with the #1 late night YouTube channel, streaming from Detroit. Looking forward to finding out what's been happening in the news, find out how everyone's weekend went, and what's going on, people. So as always, give it a second before I begin chit-chatting. But more importantly, over the weekend, I think it was Saturday morning, I just had a thought and an idea of trying to really put together some type of graph or something of that nature to really distinguish between the current trusted or the most used medium of exchange as far as value is concerned. And so I want to get your thoughts on the infographic that I shared via social media as well as on the community page for the YouTube channel. So want to find out your thoughts on it, because as I was putting it together, I was really trying to be non-biased. I wanted to be pretty much as, just not picking a side, because the channel here is Rethinking the Dollar. So we all know that the Federal Reserve note, aka the dollar, is going to be a big issue in the days ahead, but yet there's a lot of activity surrounding other mediums of exchange rather with precious metals and the long-term historical aspect of it, as well as the most recent movement in the blockchain/crypto movement, which a lot of people, especially the younger generation, will lean towards. And so I was trying to find out what makes or what classifies certain mediums of exchange and the characteristics behind them according to what has been known as the ideal properties for stable and reliable and trusted currency or money of that nature. So I put together an infographic, so I want to find out what your thoughts are with that, because of course I got a lot of feedback and some people were questioning some things, and so I want to explain how I came to those conclusions there, but also nothing's set in stone as of yet, because I want to use it more so as a visual aid tool to get out to people so that they can share with their family and friends. And it kind of speaks for itself, because if you don't believe what's on the graph, it gives you something to go look up and do some homework for yourself. So as always, any new viewers to the RTD Live Talk stream, welcome. Let me know where you're chiming in from, where you're watching us from, up in the chat section there as well. The whole show is designed on giving you, the audience, a voice. And so the number above me, 833-LIVE-RTD. Call in, share what's on your mind, what's happening in the news as far as stories are concerned, dealing with our economy, because I think it's well worth our while to stay in tune with the events happening around us. So, as always, we'll get started. So we got, what's up, Mike? What's up, Scott? How you doing, my friend? Prof. Grammy. Hey, Mike. Hey, Scott. We got Kenneth in the building. Philman, how you doing? Braxton, student of life. Hello, Scott. Says New York Red. Heck, my bad for messing up my answer. New York Redneck. What answer you referred to? I think you left a comment on the infographic, if I'm not mistaken. But if you would like to, it says, here I am, guess, can't stop buying because it's all so low. Yeah, that's another thing. I was actually listening to, because as I mentioned, I usually don't check the actual price of the metals daily, just because I'm more of the long-term perspective of, making sure you actually have it. As I always say, make sure you get your weight up. And so also I want to thank one of the viewers who reached out to me after the last live stream and collaborated and sent me a couple very detailed pieces of artwork in reference to making some shirts up. So it's love to have people out here in the audience with certain gifts and talents and want to be a blessing to the channel. So appreciate you for sending those artwork pieces over. I'm definitely will utilize those. So we got some shirts coming pretty soon, thanks to one of the viewers who has a very unique art style. What's up, Robert? How you doing, my friend? Braxton. It says gold and silver are money. Anything else is credit. JP Morgan. Very true. And so, Prof, that hints at the whole infographic, because that's why it was different putting this particular infographic together, given the fact that I know history, I know where we're currently at, but also we have to consider where we're heading, and where we're heading is solely to, and ultimately we're going to be solely digital. And so we can fight it as much as we want, but that we're already predominantly digital in reference to using our credit card and just automatic deductions from our accounts, all done digitally without actual physical cash. So cash, in comparison to the amount of dollar digits in existence, is very scarce. So another stance is the fact that as time goes on, cash will have high value, especially because there's only so many actual pieces of paper before we hit some type of crisis and the Federal Reserve cranks out a lot more to meet the demand. And so so my problem was, reason I feel like I wanted to inquire and get your guys' thoughts on it was because in filling out that middle portion of the infographic in reference to cryptocurrency is the label, but it shows a picture of the Bitcoin, but trying to go down to comparisons in reference to properties, like and I actually added one or two of them, but there's a couple things that we can't deny it. I'm not gonna sit up here and say it was easy to put that together, because I struggled, and I still, after looking back, I'm like, maybe I could have made that a little moderate or whatever. So that's why I got you guys on here. I want to find out what you think. So I'm gonna pull it up in a minute, and I want you guys to chew it up and spit it out for me so I can make some corrections and give the community as well as the viewers a visual aid that they would feel proud enough to want to share, because I think we are, as I always report, I did an article on Friday in reference to the EU referencing the time to get away from the dollar and use their currency, and then the UK, you're talking about a crisis is coming. And I actually saw an article come across the screen last night as I was watching I think I was watching a South American news channel, and they were saying how, I think it was Bolivia is probably one of the first countries in South America to begin the de-dollarization process of trying to remove the dollar out of their economy. And so there's a lot of other countries following suit, with like Ecuador and I think Peru. And so all those countries, they foresee as well as recognize the harm that using dollars in their countries has posed over the last couple of years, because it makes the life very difficult for their own citizens when their currency has to compete against another currency that people would just simply prefer to hold Federal Reserve notes as opposed to those pesos and whatnot. So they want the dollar out, which means that if they are minimizing contracts and minimizing their debt obligations out of the dollars, I mean, that's less dollars in our country, which means that, that's less people using it. And as demand goes down, unfortunately, the supply of dollars will not go down. They have to keep those things going in order to remain the reserve currency to meet demand for trade at this current point. So, but that's what it is. It says, what else you guys said? I am listening and learning. It says, question: did you know the dollar is backed up by toilet paper? That's a good one. That's a different one. Yeah, and so what I've learned based upon history is that like right here, I have a Venezuelan bolivar, and so it's a 100 bolivar note, and so I know that this piece of paper, the paper itself, has more value, because they actually use these notes as well as the other notes that, there's an unlimited supply of these pieces of paper floating around. And so I've watched videos where they have artists who bend them and fold them, and they actually make artwork, and they're able to sell the artwork for more than the actual notes are worth. So they got people making handbags, making little men like purses, all out of just bending these things, folding them and stapling them and gluing them. So they do come in handy. I'm sure people use them to, wipe themselves as well, but I wouldn't want this, my backside, but that's just me. But anyway, so yeah, that backed by paper. It says, you do know history. Say, yes, I knew. Just received my monthly random year 1 10-ounce gold eagle. Calvin, that's good, my friend. How is it random? Also, I just received my monthly. So I assume you're automatic pay for one of the metals companies out there. It says, Mike, get your weight up. Will do. AppMax, it says, de-dollarization process is a difficult word to spew out. It's a difficult word to spew out, but yet it is real talk. Anything else? And so I was actually listening to, I follow a lot of the mainstream financial gurus, sort of say. And so I love listening to advice that a lot of people are, receiving nowadays in reference to retirement and what they should do with their funds and stuff. So I'm listening to this advice, and the advice is so pre-Great Recession, and it hasn't really taken into account the policies that's been implemented since 08-09, given the fact that in order to actually receive interest on anything nowadays, you have to be more speculative in reference to being able to take risk. So a lot of people nowadays aren't considering the extreme risk that they're taking now in betting in these old, outdated, in my opinion, models of what's considered investing, where now, it's more considered realistically gambling, because you're forcing stuff, you're aggressively looking for high yielding returns on investments, and that's dangerous, because all the high yielding stuff tends to be junk bonds and things of that nature, which, as we're seeing right now with what's happening in Turkey and Argentina. Like, a lot of people don't know that a lot of New York banks and Wall Street banks are heavily invested in, or the portfolios have in them, a lot of Argentinian bond debt notes. And so if Argentina defaults on those bonds, that's basically saying they're defaulting on their promises, and everyone's portfolios is tied into that aggressive debt there. They will feel a little bit of a haircut. So, yeah. So so the advice to me is a little outdated, but yet, I'm not a certified financial advisor, so I'm not able to get out here and share with you my thoughts. But if you learn anything from history, everything seems to repeat itself, and the people who practice the same models tend not to fare well. Especially, we had the .com bust, which people took a haircut. I'm sure a lot of people. We had the Great Recession, 08-09, and so once again, there's going to be something else coming pretty soon. And speaking of which, I'm going to pull up an article from an economist that's a well-known, a highly respected economist, and he said that he foresees something coming by 2020. So I'm hearing the word 2020, which lets me know that I'm anticipating something in 2019. I'm going to speed it up a couple months, because 2020 sounds like, that's only way the media is willing to put out 2020 is because it gives people 2 years. It gives people another presidential election time frame to take their minds off the reality that the markets are hot right now. The stocks are what they are. The bond yield continues to do what it does, and all the emerging markets are imploding. We have just so many hot buttons right now that I don't think we can actually make it to 2020. So that's going to be something worth definitely taking into consideration. So what else we got here? It says 2 is valuable in Venezuela. So 2 toilet paper is valuable in Venezuela. So you're rough, tough, and don't take poop off nobody. It says SD Bullion has 10-ounce silver bar at spot. Very true. Very true. And so I actually, for those that are interested, I actually have they're one of the affiliate type sponsor situations for the RTD channel. So if you guys are interested, they have I have a link. I'll put it down below. It's sdbullion.com/RTD, and you can buy it at spot price. And so that's definitely cheaper than paying the buy it now price, which has a little bit of a premium on top of it. So actually, I'll put that link down below for any new timers that want to find out how to get their hands on something that's precious, rare, and valuable. And so I want to actually, once I make this little quick edit here, I want to get into your thoughts on the graphs, or the infographic rather, because I believe that it's going to be something that we should definitely talk about, because whether you like it or not, you're going to be faced with the fact that you will your national currency, as this video came on, I mentioned how the last statement I mentioned was that your national currency, or for us, if you're a citizen of the United States of America, you will be confronted with the reality that the dollar, I prefer to call it the Federal Reserve note, because a dollar is actually a certain gram of silver. But for the sake of this video here, to not make it complicated, you will be confronted with the reality that your currency will be the primary problem that you experience, because as the debt or the money supply continues to increase, that brings in more notes and digits to compete against your current portfolio holdings. So for example, like I was listening to a video today on the Dave Ramsey show, and someone called in, and she was nervous. She was saying that they had 670,000 saved up, and they were having some problems here and there or whatever. So the guy was saying that you should be proud of yourself. You got $670,000. You guys are doing great. And I'm thinking like, 670,000. If you look at it from a practical standpoint, that's a good chunk of money compared to the average. But I'm thinking like they were 38, 39 years old. So I'm thinking if you're going to get 30, 40 more years in your life, of course you'll add to it here and there, but that won't be enough to last you the rest of your life, in my opinion, given the fact that monetary policy is guaranteed to chew into that. And so that right there will not, that million or whatever it might be at that time, won't buy you as much as you think it will then, because a million, their house was 850,000. So I'm like, you can't really do much for $1 million nowadays. I mean, you can live good, you can do a lot of things, I'm sure, but to live off of for the rest of your life, I don't believe that's ideal. But I could be wrong. So if anybody disagrees with me, feel free to let me know, because I'm just sharing my opinions here. It says I keep hearing middle of October or Rocktober. I remember I've heard September, October for the last several years now, because I follow a lot of alternative media people and economists and whatnot. And so speaking of which, let me pull up this article, because I enjoy when what I consider credible sources, because they are economists, they live in the profession, they make their living off looking at markets or whatnot. So when people like that say this, that, I'm quick to listen and just take their perspective and listen to it. So we have a caller. Hello, caller. What's your name and where are you calling from?
What's going on? My name is Leonda, man, in Hampton Roads, Virginia.
Leonda from Virginia?
Yes, sir.
How you doing, my friend? Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind tonight?
Yes. Man, I just wanted to say I thank you, man. I appreciate you for what you do and bringing knowledge to the newcomers in the economic realm, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fairly new to the game.
Okay.
So
my pleasure, my friend. My biggest thing is just to basically share information on subject matters that I believe it's definitely one of the top 3-4 subject matters of everyone's life, right up with your family, your faith, your friends, and your finances. So, it's something we got to talk about. And unfortunately, we didn't learn nothing in school. I mean, I didn't, but so it's something we got to talk about. And the subject matter gets sensitive for a lot of people, but it's real talk. So I'd rather tell people the truth than tell them it's going to be peaches and cream forever, because we all know that's not true. Hello? Make sure you're still there. Hello, if you're still there, let me know. We'll probably let us go. So I appreciate you calling, my friend. Thank you. Yeah, so I prefer to tell more than one side of the story. The mainstream narratives will tell you that everything is all fine and good. We all know that that's not true. And then, as always, there's the other side of the story, which you won't hear in the mainstream. That's why we're here this evening. So I'm going to pull up that graph right now, and we're going to discuss it as I find that article as well. So actually, let me find this article, because the article was very interesting. So give me a second here. Talk amongst yourselves. There's a YouTuber I follow who does like some tech stuff, and he as he's doing his review, he always tells the people to talk amongst themselves as if it's like live stream or something. Let me find it. Let me see if it comes up. All right, let me see. All right, I'm gonna try to find it because it was very interesting, and I, of course, meant to do a video, but I just don't have the time. Give me a second here. Let me find it. Actually, it was posted on Kim.com, the gentleman from New Zealand who is in a lot of trouble with the law all the time, considered an outlaw because he doesn't take crap from anybody. So, let me see. I'm trying to find it, but it's not coming up. So we'll move on. I'll give it a second. We'll keep looking. We'll keep looking. But here's the visual aid here. So I'm gonna put it up. So for those that have not seen it, this is what it looks like. And as you see, turn to the side. So these are the properties of money. I didn't invent these. I added one of them, the number 9. I added that one because I felt that was something that it's going to be of use moving forward, given the fact that we're being hurled into a single digital system, of which anonymity will not be a part of it, or privacy will not be a part of it, because that's not what the system is. Most people don't even really think privacy is something they should have, because they'll say, I have nothing to hide, I don't mind. Yeah, but you do have something to hide, because and this is a great one I learned, I'm gonna use this more often. When people say that they don't have nothing to hide, then my follow-up will be, well, feel free to hand me your bank statement with your cards and your numbers so that I can help myself to it. So since you don't have nothing to hide, you're not doing nothing illegal, let me get your numbers. And at that point, I imagine people will be like, well, I'm not going to share that with you, but so that's your privacy. You don't want people knowing your business. And so that's going to be one little argument that I when I heard that, I'm like, that's real talk. But anyway, so here's the infographic. Here's the graph here. And so as of now, we all know the history of gold and silver. And currently we have been, for the last 100 years, 105 years, this Federal Reserve note here has been centrally controlled by a private organization, and has pretty much been the primary reason for income inequality in this country, because you have a institution that's designed to support the commercial banking system, because that entity is owned and operated by the too big to fail banks, in a nutshell. And then we have the idea that they're a product. And so in my very first ebook, 4 Simple Lessons You Never Learned in School, I talked about the idea that the Federal Reserve note is actually a product. It's because the Federal Reserve, despite what they say, despite what they want people to believe, it's actually a private organization. Because if you YouTube Alan Greenspan, he'll tell you that the Federal Reserve is outside the control of any body, the president, the government. Of course, the president, they'll say that, but I'm sure the bankers already bought and paid for most presidents anyway. But they'll say that the Federal Reserve is beyond any governmental jurisdictions, which means they're private. So anyway, so every corporation has a product or a service that they, give to the world. And I use the analogy of Apple. Apple is right now, one of the biggest corporations in the United States of America, for sure. I'm not sure about the world, but America for sure. And what's their product? Phones, tablets, whatever, watches, whatever. That's their product. They stay in business because they sell, and there's a demand for their products. Whereas the same with us, Federal Reserve note, the Federal Reserve system, or the banks are organizations. Their product is they control the money supply of our country, and they issue these pieces of paper that we use, as well as the digits, and they allow the commercial banks to issue the digits into existence. So, long story short, we all know what's happening with this one. And so these are the properties that give you a good idea as to what people should be more willing to consider in the long run, given the things that's happening. And a good example and a good reason why you might want to be more concerned with these properties is the fact that if you replace this piece of paper here and you were to put this note right here, and you put that right on the screen, or you put that right on the screen up there, it will fall under these same categories here. But yet we all know this is already hyperinflated away. So I would automatically have to check some of those greens and make them red, because for example, is acceptable. Number 5 on the graph here. Nobody wants this. This is no longer acceptable. So already we got to adjust some things. So I'm actually going to work on some other currencies with the same visual aid, so you can see how we are very privileged at this current moment to have the current reserve currency of the world. So because one day we're going to check some of these greens and the red, and then these right here eventually will have to be made green because they're going to have privacy, they're going to have all that stuff like that. So anyway, caller, what's your name? Where you calling from?
Sorry about that. This is Neander again from Hampton Roads, Virginia.
Yes, Leandro, how you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good. My phone had cut out. I apologize, man.
Not a problem, my friend. Not a problem. But so I was answering your question. But thanks. Go ahead.
But I was asking about the exchange rate. So if you don't mind, can you explain like how exchange rates work and how that how the U.S. dollar is rising and falling affects emerging markets and so on and so forth?
Yeah. Okay. So exchange rates in reference to currencies is it's simply that every country has their own national currency, and since we're no longer on a sound money standard as far as currencies actually being backed by anything tangible, everybody after 1971, when Nixon removed the dollar off the gold standard, every country was forced to just allow their currency to float freely according to the market's demand and need for it. Unfortunately, most countries, if you're not one of the top G7 nations, no one really needs your currency. And so in order to do business in the international realm, you need to acquire someone else's currency that people want, i.e. the euro, the dollar, and all that stuff like that. So everybody has to eventually peg or value their own currency in relevance to a supporting currency, which as of now, the reserve currency, or the most dominant, most used, happens to be the Federal Reserve note. So the Federal Reserve note is the anchor that every country has to then measure up to. And so every country is responsible for supporting their own currency in their country in relevance to something stable so that it can have value inside the country as well as be in usage to exchange for the dollars, for example, to be able to import and export. And so Right now, every country in as far as emerging markets, they are all, and so one of my past guests, man, I can't think of his name, but he was like, he's an economic professor, money manager, whatever. But he was saying he mentioned about how the word emerging market has always been used for the last 30, 40 years, and those markets, referring to those countries, have never truly emerged. They've always been second world type status in comparison to us. So we still use the word emerging, but only way they can emerge is if they have productivity, and they are naturally rich, but yet they don't have any substance to their currency because nobody wants it. So they're forced to use other currency. So Turkey, for example, whatever the lira is now, all their obligations that they owe, as far as the money they borrowed, they couldn't do it in their own currency because no one would. It's not worth anything to anybody else outside the country. So they had to borrow in dollars. And so all their debt obligations is in dollars. And so the current basket of currencies, dollar, euro, all those have a certain weight to them, which gives us the USD and all the measuring metrics. And so when the dollar appreciates according to those baskets, then all the other currencies, ideally emerging markets, depreciate as far as what they can acquire, which puts pressure on the governments to have to respond. So now they got to either sell some of their reserves, which Turkey, I just read recently, is selling some of their gold. They're selling some of their gold in an emergency measure because they're low on dollars. So that puts pressure on their currency. It causes a panic. More people get rid of their currency. They're not able to support it. And therefore, that creates that devaluation process where people are fleeing from their currency. So that makes the dollar that much more attractive. So as of now, everything is measured according to our note. And so one thing I tell people is that as of now, we have a privilege because people still need a Federal Reserve note. But based upon history and also what's happening out in the eastern area with Russia, China, all the things they have going on, one day they won't necessarily need to use our currency, and then we're going to be out of luck. You know what I'm saying? And so the preparation process has to do with what's happening now. Go ahead.
So I was going to ask to follow up on that. So when Turkey, and they had that, where Erdogan had to call for gold and asking the people to, turn in the gold to the government, what does that do to their currency?
that puts more pressure.
How does that help?
Because it helps because they need savings basically, and so they're telling people that if you turn in your gold, it'll go in our vaults. We'll have some savings because I mean initially they're supposed to be gold in Fort Knox, which is our savings. Every dollar, every Federal Reserve note is supposed to be redeemable in some form of metal, which is supposed to be at Fort Knox, but we all believe that it's not there. And so by them having some form of reserves or savings, they then can, if they need to, they can sell that gold to prop up their currency. So it gives them more lifeline because they have reserves. So here's the biggest problem is governments around the world are broke. They have no reserves. And so a lot of the countries are buying up gold right now because it's cheap, because they're preparing for something, obviously. And so if they can just print off a printing press whenever they want, what's the point in having savings? You can just print it. But now that we're reaching a point of complete debt saturation where it's not easy to borrow and it's not easy to print no more because who wants just piece of paper with ink on it?
Right,
so that they're losing their value. So that plays into this little graph here about number 7, scarcity. Like, you know, if you can print paper whenever you want, there's no scarcity to it. That means that there's an abundance of supply that depreciates the value of it. So that means it's not a number 8, store of value. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, that's how it goes out in a nutshell. But good question, my friend.
I definitely appreciate your knowledge again, man. Thank you for your knowledge again, man. It's definitely a pleasure listening to you, and keep rocking, man. I enjoy the show.
My pleasure, my friend. So this visual aid here, man, if I encourage you, if you think it's of value, I want to encourage people to share it with their family and friends, to get them to ask and inquire about these questions here, which gives you something to share with your family if you're interested. So I'm actually going to post a link right now as we speak in the chat, so guys, you can copy it if you want. So, but I appreciate you calling in, my friend. Thanks for viewing us. Thanks for tuning in.
Yes, sir.
Thank
you. Have a good one, man.
Have a good one. Yep. Good question, man. That's a very good question, man. Like these properties here, I think these properties, if more people took an interest in learning these properties, then it's possible that you can alleviate, I ain't gonna say all because it's not possible, but you can alleviate some form of the financial worry and strain about an uncertain future. Because the mainstream topic now is, you know, retirement. Do I have enough saved? And as I mentioned, or if I can mention now, there's no way you can come up with an ideal exact number of how much to save when your currency is not scarce. That means, it says, I'll give you the definition of what I got here. It says, well, I can't read, it's too small. But if it's not scarce, as far as it being a limited supply, that means that there's always going to be an increase, and that's more competition for your total portfolio right now. So if you're sitting on $500,000, and so that 500, if there was a finite supply of currency, said there's 1 trillion in existence, and they raised it according to how they did when it was pegged to gold, because you couldn't print more paper than you had gold in your vaults. But now you can print as much as you need, and this next recession / depression is coming. They're going to have to do 3, 4, 5 times more just to try to stabilize the banks. Not only the banks, but yet also when pensions and retirements go belly up, they're going to try to fund that with counterfeit money. So that means your 500,000 or whatever it is you have in your bank or portfolio, asset, equities, all that, you know, think about it. If 1 trillion gives your currency value as of right now, and it helps with the purchasing power of it, imagine if 2 or 3 additional trillion enter into the market where those 3 or 4 or 5 trillion are competing for goods and services. So that means everything at the dollar store, which is $1 now, will no longer be able to be $1 because the cost and all the logistics and all that stuff to get that product there and get it and to have it made has to go up. And so that means there'll be more units of currency going towards that one item. So a $1 candy bar will no longer be $1. It's going to be 2, 3, 4, whatever it might be, but for a candy bar. And if you think I'm lying, consider history. Right now, at the dollar store, you get a candy bar for $1. Anywhere else, it's going to be $1.25, $1.05, Walmart, 79 cents. But your great-grandparents could get a Mr. Goodbar or a Snickers for 10 cents 30, 40, 50 years ago. How is that possible? Oh, the money supply. At that time, there was only, and I actually got another infographic that tells you the money supply. But if there's only 300 billion in total money supply, I'm just running off the top of my head. Now we got 30 trillion, 233 trillion of debt. So that's a 10 times, 10, 50, 20-fold increase in the money supply, which means it costs more per item. So anyway, I'm just rambling. Forgive me. It says BIS will not be the final arbiter. It says all the fighting is over the new Silk Road. Tony, that's a very good one. And so I'm assuming you got that from that truth right there of all the chaos that's happening in the Middle East and all throughout those regions there, spurred on, in the name of terrorism, has to do with the One Belt, One Road initiative. And so that really hit me hard, because I think I heard that from on Greg Hunter, USA Watchdog, and I think that this past guest mentioned that, and I'm like, that it made sense. It made sense to me, because you have all these economic forums, all these meetings and all these agreements, and most people don't know that Saturday or this past weekend, Maduro, president of Venezuela, was in China, and he signed 28 bilateral trade agreements. And so the bilateral trade agreements, they didn't give all 28 of them, but they gave the first one and like the top 2 or 3. And so it had to do with political, economical, and finance type stuff. But the very first one, of which I'm still pondering, I'm still thinking on it, but it had to do with the removal or a negotiating of the maritime law. I forgot how it's worded, but I'm taking it as Venezuela decided to open up their waters for China to either use as far as oil rigging or something of that nature, or giving China permission to come visit Venezuela with some ships or whatnot. And so that's I'm just diving into the maritime aspect of understanding maritime law, which has to do with water and all that stuff like that. So thanks to one of the viewers who gave me a shout out on that one and encouraged me to dive into that. I actually did a little homework and found that out. So I found that to be very interesting that Maduro decided to open up his waters to China. So so you open up your waters, that gives another country the right to enter and do business. And so that's going to be interesting to see how that works out, if that is what it appears to be. But the whole point was, if I'm going to do a count just so I can show you guys, but I'm going to do a count, and I'm going to gear it towards counting how many economic forums and agreements have been signed this year through and for and by China. And so offhand, I know of 3. We got the African Forum, we got the Eastern Forum, we got the Shanghai Cooperation Forum. That's 3. And all of that includes the 20, 30, 40 countries. And United States of America, Uncle Sam, hasn't been invited to any of the meetings. And if people want to find out how serious it is, all of them have to do with bilateral trade agreements or currency swaps, and they're not using dollars. So, hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from? Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from? Hello, anybody there? Hello. Give you a second. Hello, caller. Oops. I apologize. Call back. I thought I lost you. Give me a call back, my friend. Appreciate you. It says, what is AIIB? It's the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. And so the AIIB is a Chinese initiative that has a variety of countries in it. Their primary goal, they say, is to fund infrastructure for their partners and things of that nature. So they're basically using their remaining treasuries and dollars to fund the development of a variety of countries. And so they're definitely investing. China is investing heavily in Africa. They plan on making Africa, the continent of Africa, a leading world of they're trying to make African continent a manufacturing hub. And they're doing that because A, Africa needs development, but 2, they have unlimited natural resources. Africa, in my opinion, is one of God's greatest gifts as far as what they are sitting on in the form of minerals, gold, oil. There's so much stuff in Africa, man, and the Chinese are aware of that. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hello?
Yes, how you doing?
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing good. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Good. This is Tony from Oakland.
Tony from Oakland. How you doing tonight, my friend? What's on your mind?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad. I was reading on the BIS website about cryptocurrencies, and they said it's in its infancy stage, and they have a hard time scaling. And then not only that, it's trusting the people that are behind it, because the government ain't able to do the whole thing. The miners and the people who are actually putting it out for people to gather.
Yeah.
And they said that the only thing that they could see it's good for is a peer-to-peer decentralization, but centralize the amount that they can release out into the public.
Yeah, yeah, and
then the
no, go ahead.
No, I'll wait on you.
No, I was gonna say, and so that's interesting how the stance from a lot of those banking organizations have changed over the last year or two or so, to where now this year, I believe the BIS as well as the Goldman Sachs and the World, whatever, all those acronyms they throw out there, they all have a different opinion now. And it seems to be interesting that they're more understanding and they're playing along with it for some reason, because they know they can't stop it because it's a movement that's taking place. But I've always been critical and skeptical of it, but I always wonder, is this a Trojan horse of a system that's being positioned because they opposed it, they can't fight it, but it's taking mainstream attention now, so they no longer have to come out all negatively because they know it's going to be taken. They know it's going to become mainstream, and then how will they tax, regulate, and all that stuff will be the main things I'm concerned about. So, yeah.
I think there's several different angles that they can take on this, and that's where we probably all get confused. As everybody's thinking it's going to be like the dollar, and it's not going to be the dollar. It's going to be different angles, like financial systems are going to be contracted, and not only that, they're going to be able to transfer from bank to bank, whereas we wouldn't be able to touch anything that they're doing in the crypto. Goldman Sachs has already got their Fed coin. It's called the Settle coin. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on, because I don't want to take up too much of your time, is the Venezuela thing. China did sign bilateral agreements, and one of them was, the big thing was the oil. They're accepting their oil and what is considered their payments. And I just think China's just railroading everybody, and rightfully so, because the U.S. has abused their position, railroading everybody into coming over there onto their side.
Yeah. And so I didn't get through all 28 of them because I could only find, it was very little information in detail. I would like to see all 28, but I don't think those will be coming out no time soon, because I would imagine in there it talks about, you mentioned the oil, but I'm sure they talk about what type of swaps they will end up doing currency-wise, or China might perhaps accept the petro, because the petro, as a guest viewed us, joined us last week or two, he's saying the petro was introduced with the idea of future oil production. So it's actually oil in the ground that's pegged to the petro. So if China accepts the petro, that's basically saying that they own rights to what's under the ground. So that could help Venezuela out big time, because they'll basically have to sell what they're sitting on, which could put them back. It could get them some funds to get back into operations, but it wouldn't work because the money going to be stolen anyway. So.
No, I agree that China did sign the bilateral agreement, and it's for what's in the ground. And they did the same thing with Africa. They signed all the billions of bilateral agreement with Africa, and it's not because Africa has something on top of the surface. It's what's in Africa's ground that they're after.
Yeah. Very true. And so
all that bilateral stuff is stuff in the ground that's coming up, and even Syria. It's like Russia, Turkey, and Iran has divided that country. I don't even know who the president is now.
Have you noticed how 2 years ago, 3 years ago, especially during Obama's last year, how it was all the regime, Assad regime? I haven't heard nothing about no regime in a minute. Right. So what happened? I mean, Assad's still in power.
They invited Russia in. Russia took over the country, and now.
I lost you there. Hello. So, Tony, I'm going to have to let you go because I lost you, my friend. But thanks for calling in and sharing what's on your mind. Thank you. Interesting. So, I wonder if is it my phone or what? Anyway, but that was a good stuff. Tony, man, thanks for calling in. And so, yeah, so here's the dilemma. So it could be looked at two ways. It could be a opportunity or a overall opportunity or a problem. I'll keep it that way. And so that's why these properties, I believe, are important, because with all this bilateral trade stuff going on, that means there will be less need and demand for our national currency. And so right now we're witnessing the meltdown of a lot of national currencies. And there's of course the countries we know about, we call them emerging markets, but then there's other countries that are right behind. Chile, for example, is a country that their currency has depreciated a little bit. Indonesia currency has Singapore dollar has depreciated a little bit. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6 countries that I haven't really commented on because they're not mainstream news. We talk about the ones that are in a meltdown phase right now. But yet, by the end of this year, some of those, it's going to be, right now it's 5, give or take. Argentina, Venezuela, South Africa, Brazil, and something else. There's 5 or 6 getting mainstream attention. But there's probably about a total of 10 that will be mainstream by the beginning of next year. Gunny, how you doing, my friend? So there's going to be 10 countries that will be experiencing a economic meltdown, monetary meltdown, because they have more debt denominated in dollars that they can't pay back because their currency is worth nothing. And so they have to either default or cut back from their citizens. Austerity. We're going to hear the word austerity big time. Wait till the word austerity comes here to the U.S. And it's going to be in the form of, or it's already here, but it hasn't been given the name austerity. It's been called reform, tax reform. And so they're going to do the pension reform. And so all those reforms basically saying we have to give less. We've overpromised, so now we have to dial back. So we're going to hear the words reform more and more and more. Like next time, there's already actually coming to think of it, there's something, I think it's September or October, there's a bill proposed by some Congress members that has to do with the Retirement Reform Act or something of that nature, where they're talking about having to address public pensions. And so there's no real addressing it other than realizing that they're underfunded, and that means that, the 100 million was promised, but there's only 50 million in the bank. What do you do? I mean, you either pay out less, you tax the population more, or you go to printing press. Either one. Either way it goes, it won't work out. So with that being the case, I said there's a bill in Congress called Myra Act. Okay, so Tone, is that the one? Let me check this one out. Myra Act. Let's see what pops up. Myra Act. Myra accounts to provide for. Let me see here. So is this My IRA or just Myra? It says HR 3653 Myra Act. And so I'm assuming it's My Retirement Account Act. So the bill is in the first stage of legislative process. It was introduced in Congress on August 2017. It will typically be considered by committee next before it's possibly sent on the House or Senate. 4% chance. So it says here, prognosis, 4% chance of being enacted according to Scopus Labs. And so the bill must be passed. Whatever. So what's some of the contents of it? Let me find out what. I'll put this in and find out some of the details of it. Find out some of the nitty gritty. South Shore campaign donors. Nothing came up. See if anything's been written up. It says key votes. Okay, for Wisconsin congressional. Yeah, so unfortunately, there's nothing, it's nothing even mainstream about it as of now. So that lets me know that the chance of it being passed is probably not likely. So with that being the case, I wouldn't bank on that, because if no one knows about it, it's good to say it's one of a lot of bills that's being put before the House or all that stuff like that. So my IRA, I am familiar with that. And so I remember President Obama, towards the last of his last year in office or two, they came out with my IRA, which is basically saying that you get your loaning money to the government and they guarantee to pay it back. And they're gearing it towards more so the younger crowd, and they're placating the need for retirement for the lower class. So they're saying if you give $5 or $10 at a minimum, it'll add up. Yeah. Okay. Let me see here. They're going to bail in or inflate our currency. I do agree 100%. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, Mike. It's Michael from San Diego.
Mike from San Diego. How you doing, my friend? What's on your mind this evening?
I didn't know if you had heard, but I had heard the Federal Reserve, the license was revoked today, so they can't perform any banking functions anymore. So I'm thinking, like when they had problems in 2008, they said, we'll just print more money.
Yeah.
I think that what they're doing is they're taking their ability away. So when the next downturn or stopping of government happens, they're not going to be able to come out with a print.
Let me check. I lost my caller. So I definitely didn't end the call on you. So call me back, and I can dive into that. But I don't believe that. Not saying the information is not true, but I would imagine if that was true. So I'm typing in Federal Reserve Bank license revoked, and let me see. It said withdrawal circle suspension, safeguard duties, Fed. Yeah, I don't see nothing. And so if that was like a behind the door executive order passed by the president type of thing, I could believe that, because there's been so many executive orders that's been on the hush that I wouldn't doubt it. But as of now, looking on just Google, nothing pops up. So that leads to be believed that, that information could be in the works. But here's the thing. If they were to revoke their license and told them they can't, function as our primary money holder and issuer and last resort and bailout, all that crap, then when the hiccup does come, then what will be the response? Who will step up to the plate? Because for the last 105 years, it's been a private entity. So it's good to say, I would imagine that most of the employees that work for the United States Treasury, which is supposed to be our financial accountants, I bet you most of those people don't know what to do as far as how to run and maintain a nation's currency, because they gave that up 100+ years ago. So with that being the case, I would question that one. But thanks for sharing that. I'm gonna check it out. It says fake news. Bill HR 3653 says Bitcoin is uniform standard units. Agree. CIA cut it off. So who ends the Federal Reserve? Who ends the Federal Reserve? That's the thing. Like, apart from if the American people don't stand up, first of all, the American people wouldn't know where to point the blame if there was to be some type of banking situation. So it's good to say that the Federal Reserve could get off the hook, because people will naturally blame government, and then the government would have to blame the Federal Reserve. So the call dropped once again, so call back in and I'll try to get you on, but not sure what's up with that, but keep calling in, my friend. We'll get you on here again. So with that being the case, we'll see. It says there is a Fed in every county, not just USA. Fed as in Federal Reserve Bank, or Fed as in like the federal government employee type Fed? I don't like Bitcoin because it's just a subdivided decimal and anything in cyberspace is hackable. Low blood pressure. I do believe that I wouldn't question those statements there because I do, and in the past I've always questioned the origin as well as the intended use by its creator, whoever that may be. Some people say it's the CIA. They have all types of things, and I'm not going to go down that route. But what I will say is it's being adopted at an alarming rate, and it's not going anywhere. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yes, Mike. It's Michael. I'm sorry.
Hey, Mike. Yep. I'm sorry. We lost you. We lost you in your thoughts. So I'm not sure what's up with the phone, but we'll keep trying it. So continue what you're saying.
Well, what I had heard of from that came out today was the privileges were revoked, and they said the Treasury has taken over and will be taking over, meaning they're not planning on giving. If this is true, they're not planning on giving them back rights. Yeah. And I had heard about it. I follow a guy called Lucid Dreamer on YouTube, and he did a video about it today. And then there was few other people, and you never know on YouTube if people do the research or if they see your video and then they're going to make a video about the same issue on their channel. So I haven't had the time to research it to find out exactly.
So do me a favor, because I typed in Federal Reserve banking license revoked, nothing came up. So I'd imagine if there's something like that came out, it'll be all over all alternative media channels, not just one or two or three. So I would encourage you, not saying that it's not true, but it's just that it hasn't surfaced yet. It could be tomorrow morning. But when you get a chance, dig into the articles, and if you come across something, shoot it to me, and I'd love to talk about it.
I will, yes, because, this guy, I think this fellow is from the UK. He's not in the United States. He has a very thick accent, so I'm wondering if he's able to have access to information that, you know how Google, their bots like to block, anything that would be popular to the people here. Yeah. On our engine. So I will look for that. And how would I reach you?
Yep. On the website, go to rethinkingthedollar.com. The tab up top is the button, or the Telegram group. Join the Telegram group and just shoot me a message directly. It goes off of my phone, and we can chit chat that way. So it should be in the description. The Telegram group. Join it and then share the article there. So there's other people there who I'm sure love to see it as well if you find it.
Very good. Yeah, I will do. I will go to your website. I didn't know you had one, so I will go and add that to my list. Okay. And see if I can get a hold of you that way.
Sounds good. Appreciate you, Mike. Thanks for calling in, buddy.
Thank you, Mike.
Have a good
night.
Love the show. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Yeah. So we've been close to an hour, and that's our time frame there. But before I log off, or we come to a conclusion tonight, I want to get back onto these properties. And the whole point of me wanting to talk about this tonight was just as I was putting this together, as I mentioned at the very beginning, I was trying to be as non-biased as possible, clear cut, put my prejudices aside and just be straight real with what I see now and what I see in the future. And so as I was doing this, I made a copy, asked, inquired some information and looked at it. I'm like, let me check that. And so it's based upon where we're currently at and where we're going to be. And that's why I believe that these check marks and little dashes and X's can change and will change a lot sooner than we all would probably be willing to accept. Let me tell you why. And so the fiat currencies is what has been the primary medium of exchange because it's illegal tender. It comes from the governments, and so the people, we've been conditioned to only operate through our national currency. So everything we do is denominated in, if you're in the U.S., a dollar. And we never really pay attention to these properties because we always assume it's going to be there. The dollar it's been here my entire lifetime, and I'm sure everybody who's viewing us now, we've already known a dollar. And so one day, just like every other currency, this will no longer be something that will be, it'll be easier for people to question what I'm about to say. And so we know the history of gold and silver. It has unbelievable properties because it has been the anchor for centuries. So it's divisible, it's fungible, it's all these things plus a bag of chips, and except portable. But I put a moderate because now they have opportunities where you can do digital gold. You can have gold stored somewhere and swipe it, and so that makes it portable, where you can take it in the form of a digital unit on a card. So it's portable in a sense, but yet not fully, because you can't take a big bars of gold with you wherever you go, type of thing. But it's accepted everywhere. Everybody knows its value and its scarcity because it comes from the earth. And so there's so much I can pull out of here, but I'd be talking forever. But the primary subject matter, and this is from a person's, there's more similar that to the gold and silver category than they are to the fiat currency. And let me explain this, because as time goes on, store value will be an issue that we'll all be addressing, because we'll all learn sooner or later that you can't and shouldn't have. If I wanted to, if you know about privacy coins and the features and the benefits, I could have checked green here. Boom. Store value as of right now, it's not a good store value, because this current Bitcoin was 19,000, now it's 6,000 or whatever, 6,500. But yet by the middle of next year, I believe, after the custodian aspect has been solved, after the institutional money has been brought in like they said, and then also, believe it or not, because of the underfunded nature of pensions and retirement portfolios, and the need for hedge funds managers and portfolio managers to earn on the money they're holding, they're going to have to dip and dabble into the cryptocurrency sector. So they're going to, I guarantee you, because right now, most hedge funds, as well as all the people who protect and guard and monitor and manage retirement accounts, there are stocks, bonds, real estate investment. There's 3 or 4 options, of which they're not moving. They're all in bubbles. All those, the stock market's in a bubble. It can't grow much more to meet the demand of an 8% return to pay somebody 8% every year for, from here going forward. Real estate is in a bubble. All 2 of those, when they pop, they're going to just go belly up anyway. So everybody's portfolio is going to drop automatically. But where will all those funds go? It will go to this second column. And so that's why I put this on here, because by sheer demand, all of these will be checked off as green, because technology will improve. Now, whether or not you accept it or want to buy into it, it's up to you. But we can't deny the fact that everything is being positioned for this middle column here to be compared to this one to the left, as this one to the far right is no longer needed or even recognized as a world reserve currency. So that's why I had a dilemma on how to check these off, because as of now, these moderate ones, like, it's acceptable. Bitcoin's acceptable for only those who are aware of the crypto space. But pretty soon you'll be going to Walmart and using Amazon, and you'll be able to go to any major retailer and accept Bitcoin. And I believe that's coming through this program called Be It Backed in November. They're initiating the program, and by January it's going to be up and running. It may not be announced initially, but you will be able to go to Walmart and use Bitcoin and or whatever other currency. Uniform. Is it the same currency here that it is in India? Is it the same currency that it is in China? Yes, Bitcoin is just a digital blip, so it's the same unit. So that will be checked off. But now, the uniform aspect, reason I put moderate is because you have Bitcoin, you have Bitcoin Cash, you have Bitcoin Gold, you have Bitcoin Diamond, you have Bitcoin Private. You had all these spin-offs, so it gives it the impression that it can be easily manipulated. But yet, at the end of the day, there's only one Bitcoin as like the core coin, and so I could have checked out green for that. But because you can fork a cryptocurrency, there's going to be some trust issues there. And then what else? As I mentioned, all those there. So I covered all those bases there. But at the end of the day, as I get ready to sign off, the most important thing to consider and to really, really take to heart is that there's only one currency or money or whatever on this graph that has a red check mark. Now, that is very important, because these 2 marks here should be more than enough for you to share this information with anybody and it be able to really sink in, because you can't deny it. Like, it wasn't hard for me to check these. Like, going through this one, I'm like, oh, this is easy. And it's moderate durable because you can only use a $1 bill or $100 bill for so long. Even if the lifespan is 5 years, 10 years, whatever it might be, before the paper just runs thin. So it's not durable in that regards there. But other than that, these two X marks here are the most important properties that people should protect themselves from. It's the scarcity aspect. Quantitative easing has proven that monetary policy, central banks don't mind creating money out of nothing, even more than the public needs in order to protect itself. So the scarcity aspect is a flat out going to be an issue. Then, because of the scarcity issue, because there's an infinite amount of Federal Reserve notes, and the people always love to comment on the 21 trillion that's missing, hint the idea of lack of scarcity when it can be created and people not even know about it for decades, and it to be there. So if you think it's just 21 trillion, I would be willing to bet it's a lot more than that, because we just hearing about the 21 trillion. Federal Reserve been around for 105 years. You mean to tell me they only have 21 extra trillion floating around off books? No. And so that means that the Federal Reserve note, i.e., everything that's denominated, everything that we denominate our life off of in the form of our portfolios, savings, checkings, everything, our house value is denominated in this currency here. But because of it not being a store of value, that means that it's subject to the markets. It's subject to the global economy. It's subject to what Russia and China decide to do in 2 years or next year or 5 years from now that will impact this right here drastically, because they already say the dollar is only worth 2 cents of its original purchasing power. That right there is not true, because the dollar is already sub-zero, because you can't get a single item for $1 unless you shop it at a bargain store like the dollar store, and it's tax included, so that doesn't count. So if that being the case, that's what it is. And so this graph here is very important. I wanted to make sure I shared it with you guys. And so for those who might be tuning in late, you might be getting the very end of this, but this is for you as well. I want you guys to leave comments down below, and if there's an issue that you see or something that I could readjust or even contemplate, we can get together again, because I want to clean this up as much as I can so that I can really begin using this as a tool to share with people. I'll print some out. I'm going to tag it, send it, hashtag it, everything I can, so people can see that and inquire about these two red X's right here and really wonder, like, what does that mean? What does store of value mean? I never knew what a store of value is. That type of stuff. And be able to share information with them that I think is going to be, it can be life-saving for a lot of people. It says here we got XRP. What's up with XRP? They are currently using cell phone minutes as money. Why not crypto? Yeah. Look at who Venezuela used. It wasn't Bitcoin based. Yep. I'm not sure. They published what platform they were using for the Petro, but I don't know if they're still using it. Coinbase needs to stop playing and just put up XRP. So there's a lot of XRP fans here, and I'm assuming they're XRP fans because people call it the banker's coin, which means the bankers will let it appreciate nominally to the point where people feel like they're going to make a lot of gains off of it. But the banking sector is not in the business of making you profitable. So if you're holding a lot of their coins, it'll be easy for them to pump in, because the central bank can easily print off 1 trillion and pump up, and they can have the central bank buy up 1 trillion worth of XRP, which would make it will become the number one coin or whatever it might become, and people will go out buying it, anticipating it going up more, and so it can go from 1 trillion off of funny money to all-time highs. And then getting the whole world, all media be talking about it. And then you have all these newbies going out there, like they did it in December, getting in because the price is going up. And then the banks or central banks, they pull their 1 trillion out, and everybody lose all their funds. And the coin goes from $1,000 a coin to back to $1, and it ruins the reputation of all blockchain. People will lose everything because you can have so many people chasing XRP. And so when the banks control it and the banks can do whatever they want to do with it, it's not decentralized. So I personally wouldn't necessarily believe in chasing gains with that coin. That's just me. But it is what it is. So anyway, everybody, it's been over an hour. We've had a good time. I've enjoyed myself. Thanks for calling in. A lot of participation tonight, as always. So it's been good. It's good to have a lot of people chiming in. And so as always, if you're new to RTD, click the subscribe button, as well as if you're watching right now, if you're still on right now, take the time to give this video a thumbs up so more people, so it can be discoverable, so more people can come across this and see this graph and inquire, so you can be playing your part in helping getting this news out, so people can begin, inquiring about the truth. I mean, the truth, will set you free. So we're trying to get people to hear what I call the monetary gospel of setting themselves free from the tyranny of the powers that be, as much as we can. We're not going to be absolutely free in this world, because this world isn't designed to give us the type of life that we're promised from the Bible. But in the meantime, we can have some form of peace and have a mission to work towards. So anyway, everybody, thanks for tuning in tonight. As always, I have all the social media things. You can join me right here, Steam it, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. And as always, up here at the very top, support the channel, become a Patreon. I also got my Bitcoin address up there if you guys want to be a blessing via cryptocurrency. Show your boys some love. I appreciate it. Other than that, Detroit's #1 YouTube talk show. We signing out tonight. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Join me tomorrow night. Tell a friend. Bring a friend along with you. Let's have a group discussion. And as always, if you guys want to another survey, leave some survey topics down below, or join the Telegram group and leave something there as well, and we can get something going, get more people informed and in tune with what's happening in the real world. So other than that, enjoy your nights. Be safe. See you later.